I left the tower immediately, without even talking to Ikora. I had planned on talking to her, but a small part of me felt betrayed by her. Like she somehow participated in that whole thing in some devious way that warlocks do with these things. A bigger piece of me knew that wasn't true. I didn't plan to stay away from the tower at all after my run in trials. I could simply wear my helmet and be another anonymous face in the crowd. It worked for Uldren, so it should work for me. Even if Zavala did somehow recognize me as a fellow Awoken, he'd never bring it up in public for fear of inciting the crowd again. I decided to spend the night on Europa. The quarters I set up near Elsie would give me enough distance from the tower and privacy to rest. The next morning, I headed out to Titan to get my daily patrols done. Everything went off well, and the run and gun distracted me enough to keep my mind off of what was about to happen between Saint and Zavala. I jumped back to orbit from a patrol on Titan headed toward the tower. My ghost had been unusually silent today, so I called her out on it.
What are you not telling me? You usually give me a bunch of updates and information about enemy movements as we patrol.
She looked away for a moment. My little light was troubled by something.
Guardians and civilians in the tower have been protesting all day. Some are swarming Zavala and some are clogging up the hangar yelling at Saint.
Yep, it was getting worse before it got better. I just didn't think it would go this far.
Tell Holiday I'm sorry, and that I'm on my way.
It took longer than usual to transmat into the tower. I circled on the landing pattern for several minutes, just stewing in my anxiety over what I was walking into. The apparent chaos of the courtyard made it difficult to raise anyone to clear my landing. I transmatted into a pit of screaming and flying objects with my helmet on, prepared for the worst, and found it to be just as bad as I thought. Mechanical parts and crumpled paper and resentful yelling littered the area, making it nearly impossible to get around and accomplish anything. I could see the guards struggling to hold a perimeter around Banshee. They were keeping people from using the stairs behind his shop and storming Zavala's office. He wasn't in his normal spot in the tower as a result of all the protesting. There was yelling, chanting, and a sea of signs being waved around. I made out something about Zavala failing to honor the Vanguard dare. I knew there was nothing communicated like that between Uldren and Cade. In fact, Cade hated the Sovs for what happened with the Kell of Kings. Uldren went nuts trying to convince everyone that he was getting visions from his sister, and Petra put him in prison to protect Uldren from himself and everyone else. Then Varix got involved in creating the Scorn, and that was what led to Cade getting killed. I turned and ran to the hangar. As I approached, another growing area of noise and confusion washed over me. I could see Holiday seated way up high on some scaffolding with her arms folded. She saw me entering the hangar and yelled at me.
This is all your fault, you blue-haired idiot.
I looked over at Saint's position in the hangar to see a crowd surrounding him, chanting and stomping something about treason and betrayal. There were broken maintenance frames all over the area. This was actually worse than I thought. Surprisingly, Saint was rather calm. He was sitting on the steps to his jump ship, probably wishing he could tend to his birds and talk about trials. The ruckus had scared them all away. There were some guardians in the crowd, but they kept their distance, knowing how powerful Saint was if he ever decided to put an end to this silliness. I pulled off my helmet and pushed my way through the crowd, trying to figure out what we would do next. I knew I had to step in and handle this, with Lord Shax protecting Zavala and Banshee from those protesters. They were numbered around 50 or 60, and were spaced around Saint in a semicircle, yelling and chanting over and over. Just as I got through the group, a blonde-haired Flash jumped in front of me, wildly waving an arc welder and wearing a safety visor, throwing around all the piss and vinegar of a boss fed up with people disrupting her workspace.
All right. I'm completely over this stupidity.
She waved the electric wand around in front of her, pushing the crowd back.
If I don't see all my crew back at their posts in 30 seconds, I'ma weld some butt cracks shut and pound some heads. And all you civvies can get the hell out of my hangar.
The crowd was completely taken aback with this display of frustration and venom. Saint stood up and calmly walked over to us.
Thank you, Miss Holiday. I was growing weary of all this noise.
She shut down the arc welder and yanked the visor from her head. Amanda Holliday was a loyal soldier of the Vanguard. Her courage and fighting spirit was that of legend even among the Guardians. What came out of her mouth next was more than I ever expected from her.
And you two. God damn it. I have had enough of this stupid windmill tilting.
She wiped her sweaty brow and turned back toward the group across the hangar watching this go down.
Y'all got 10 seconds left before the ass whooping start. Guardian, I like you, but don't think for 1 second that just because you got your old chaperone that I'ma just sit by and watch you tear apart this place for some silly redemption quest.
Miss Holiday.
And you.
Amanda pulled another rag from her back pocket and slapped Saint in the chest with it.
I got Guardians running in and out of this place at all hours, chasing bounties and loot for trials and distracting my work. It's bad enough that octopus-faced alien shows up out of nowhere giving away more pointless exotic gear to lazy Guardians.
Amanda, I'm sorry about...
No, you're not!
She yelled back. She stopped and looked at me again. Suddenly, her face softened.
And that's the part of the reason I like you. You stand for something.
She looked back at her crew, milling about, pretending to work while trying to overhear what she was saying.
Look, I miss K2, and I wish we could move forward and not fight about silly stuff. I may not be a guardian like y'all, but I know when people hurt. I know that we gotta work together, because we're all we have left.
Amanda was truly a strong woman with a heart of gold, who always wore it on her sleeve. She turned back to Saint, pointing a finger into the middle of his chest.
I'm not disrespecting no one here, but you gotta fix this. Make this right with Zavala. I don't care what it takes. Maybe do whatever Titans do and have some punching contest or something. I don't know. What I do know is that we're running out of time, and we all gotta be on the same page soon, or there won't be a damn thing left of this system.
She turned back to me and patted me on the cheek.
Go get him, Tiger.
She then whipped around and started walking back to her shop area, yelling again.
What did I say about those spinner racks, huh? Did I stutter? Get your sorry ass off my bench. The only thing your backside should be touching is a chair in your house at dinner time. Now get those grease guns clean and organized before I start to lose my temper.
Come, Guardian. Let us end this.
As we climbed the steps from the hangar to the courtyard, Zavala's voice boomed over the general clamor of what I had left. It looked like he finally had enough and was quelling this uprising. That is, until Saint and I were spotted by the crowd. Then the debris started flying again. Broken maintenance frames, garbage, yelling, screaming, all permeated the air in an instant. I was starting to think we would have to break the no combat rule. Until Shax did it for us. With a crash and flash of arc energy, Shax landed with his ground pound in the center of the courtyard. Everyone and everything flew back several feet. The sparks cleared the air, revealing no serious injuries other than the pride of a few disabled guardians. Shax rose from the hissing concrete with his voice full of frustration and disappointment as the air sparked and crackled around him.
This ends now! Saint 14, Zavala!
Saint stood tall and walked up to his friend. Shax held his hand up to Saint as words started to come out.
I'm done listening to you, my friend. It's time for action.
Zavala walked up to Shax with clenched fists at his side, but otherwise collected.
I agree. The only way Uldren Sov is a member of the Vanguard is over my lightless body. Saint 14, you might have the goodwill of many on your side, but you are not a member of any ruling authority that I answer to. The time for calm diplomacy is over.
Zavala, I do not wish to fight you. I wish to unify the people behind us all. The people respect you for your loyalty and dedication to the Traveler. You are the face of their faith, the voice of calm for them. I am willing to stand with you in the Vanguard and be another voice for our common goals.
Zavala stopped and cocked his head to one side. Unfortunately, I ended up in his line of sight, and I forgot to put my helmet back on. I saw his fists squeeze tighter, and his brow furrowed deeply as he finally decided to publicly confront this challenge to his authority. Shax stepped between the advancing Saint and Zavala.
It seems as though we've reached an impasse. I shall clear the Crucible after the next round of matches. It's time for the two of you to handle this Titan to Titan.
You cannot be serious, my old friend.
I cannot abide the growing tensions in the tower. You two started this. Are you prepared to see it through to the brutal end?
All I want is for Zavala to be who the people need him to be. You have their trust and faith, and that's more important right now than anything else. We must heal from Cade's death. We must move forward with a fully intact Vanguard, and a speaker as a unifying voice.
Saint stopped and looked around with his hands out to his side, palms up, amazed that no one could comprehend the truth he spoke. He was almost pleading with Zavala not to fight. I glanced up to see Ikora standing above it all, where Saladin would be. I could sense Saint had resigned himself to the inevitable conclusion of our quest. He dropped his hands to his sides and nodded. He and Zavala would need to just have this out as warriors, and as titans.